Guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these very interesting Yulomi figures that have recently been coming out. I have reviewed now both different versions of their Tyrannosaurus Rex, but now we've got a really interesting one. As you can see, we have ourselves a Pyroraptor, and it looks like it's kind of based on the Jurassic World Dominion version, but not perfectly. It definitely has its own, uniqueness, I guess, to it, its own individuality. Definitely not a direct clone. I think the coloration is kind of similar to what you see on a Jurassic World Dominion version of a Pyroraptor, but as a whole, it's a pretty cool looking figure and is absolutely gigantic. You can see if I bring my hands in here, it's definitely a very large figure, so without a doubt one of the largest Pyroraptor figures I think that we have out from anybody, which is really cool. But you can see again, it's got some articulation and I believe an action feature, so it's very Mattel Jurassic World-like as far as the way they go about the figure, but it's also, again, a lot larger than you would see with a Mattel Pyroraptor. So, as always, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this and check it out from there. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Pyroraptor, one thing you'll notice right away is we actually have some really nice fine detail on this one. Not so much for the lower jaw, but up here in the upper part of the face, I think the sculpt looks really good, and probably the best fine detail that I've seen from Yulomi so far. It actually has kind of decent, kind of vibrant skin texture, which is nice. But you can see some nice wrinkling there in the eye socket area. Also a little variation of color as we have a reddish tone for the face, but you can see a little darkening there in the eye socket, a little darkening up here as you lead up toward the snout. We've got the nostrils sculpted out up there. You've got a really nicely painted eye with a green, a black, and then a white spot to kind of give us that eye shine look. The mouth does kind of stand here in an open position. You can close it, but that also has like a part to do with the action feature. And if you actually could see down here, you can see the arms are moving with the jaw closing. You can see the teeth are all sculpted together, but they look pretty decent, I guess, for what they are. They're painted with a white tone, and then you can see the same deal for the lower jaw. Different sizes of teeth and everything as you move through. You can see the tongue is sculpted out. It does have some slight texturing to it, but nothing overly impressive. And same thing there for the inside of the mouth on the upper side. Nothing super impressive. It also has like this area where it kind of cuts off back there, which is a little, iffy, but not terrible either. As you lead down to the lower jaw, you can see we've got a darker variation of a gray down here for the lower jaw. And then as you lead up here to the top of the head, again, some more really subtle variation of color. They have done actually a very good job of applying various tones of color to the skin, which helps to give it a bit of a realistic look. You can also see a little bit of a muted look to the skin texture up here. A little better right here, but as you lead back into the back of the head, you can see we've got some feathers kind of sticking off of the back of the head. The feathers themselves don't really have any detail to them, but they look okay for what they are. You can see they have that darker grayish tone that leads out to a brighter variation of red as you lead off of the back of the head. They also have a little bit of a shine to them. As you lead down the course of the neck, you can see again, we don't really have like a fully feathered version of a Pyroraptor here. It's more or less like a skin textured version with feathers kind of showing up sporadically. So as you lead down the neck, you can see that we've got some kind of rough and rugged looking skin texture. You also have scoots running down along the course of the Pyroraptor, which is interesting. That is definitely not something I would have expected to have seen, even on a fully skin-textured version of a Pyroraptor. I think that is definitely a unique look, and in general, when you look at it here from the side, you can almost see sort of like an armored kind of a look here moving along the back, almost giving it like it's a mixture of somewhat of an Ankylosaurus and Pyroraptor together, so maybe this is just a really crazy hybrid, I don't know. But you can see that we have a darker tone that kind of follows along those scoots as you move down through the course of the back of the Pyroraptor. But then as you move down here into the side of the dinosaur, you do have a much finer variation of skin texture down here. You can also see that we've got some darker tones that kind of stripe up here through the stomach, even though we have these nice bright red tones for the body. You also have that darker variation of a gray here running down, but then you have this even darker variation like a pavement gray that kind of stripes through the throat as well. As you lead down into the arms, first of all, you can see the muscle definition right here. Definitely a very strong looking arm moving down, but as you lead down, you've got some really nice plumage here in the arm, and you can see, even though the fine detail of the feathers isn't very good, the feathers themselves do look pretty decent, and I like how they're kind of sculpted out all sporadically, so they have a little bit more of a realistic look to them. And they have that reddish tone again to start with that you see through a large portion of the body, but as you lead out toward the tips, they have a very nice lighter variation of gray on the tips of the feathers. As you lead down into the hands are kind of curved into the body. You've got some nice scoots running down the fingers, as well as a darker variation of a gray, and you have painted nails, a nice black tone, kind of a little bit of a glossy look to it, kind of sort of a satin shine. I can definitely see it on these nails over here shining, so that's a plus. And you can see on the underside of the arm we do still have the skin texture. You can see the muscle definition and everything there, as well as again the nice curve in the hand there, the fingers of our Pyroraptor. Obviously the wrists are not correct, but there's not really anything that's correct about this Pyroraptor. As you move back here into the thigh, you can see the muscle definition is nicely highlighted yet again. It's also defined there with a darker tone as they've kind of airbrushed that in the areas of the muscle definition. Moving down, you've got the knee, you've also got the calf muscle nicely and very strongly sculpted out there. And then as you move down into the foot, you again transition to a darker variation of a gray. You've got the sickle claw and everything down here, again nicely painted with a black or a very dark gray. They look pretty good for the most part. We do think have dew claws over there, but they're not painted. Kind of looks like we do, but at the same time it kind of looks like maybe that's not a claw. I don't know. But as we move back up here into the tail, we continue to kind of have like those scoots moving along the course of the back of the Pyroraptor. And then we lead down here, again transitioning to a skin texture. And then we lead out into the tail, and the tail has another nice area here of plumage as you lead out. So we do have a really cool look to the tail feathers here of the Pyroraptor, again mixing with like the grayish tones and reddish tones. Very nice curves, nice imperfections in the feathers with the way that they're kind of sitting. So again, adding a little bit of life to the figure. As you run along the underside, it looks okay, but you've got like the battery compartments and the sound area and everything down here. So nothing super impressive. And then if we turn the Pyroraptor around, you can see again, the head sculpt looks pretty much the same as it did on the initial side. So it looks, you know, okay for what it is. And then as you move down, the arm is in a slightly different position over here compared to what we see on the other side. It's kind of held up a little bit higher. Same style of sculpt, same style of paint. The wrist is a little closer to correct though, at least on this side. The leg is leading forward a lot more, but it's also an articulated leg, so you can kind of move them wherever you want. That's just where it's currently sitting. But even when it's standing, you know, if the legs were in the correct positioning, right there I guess would be where they would stand naturally. And you can see this leg is definitely a little bit further forward compared to what we see on the other leg. Get a look over there. Yeah, yeah, we do have like a dew claw going on there, but it is very weird looking. I don't know what's going on with that. But then you lead up and the tail does curve away from us, so it's a little different as far as that goes on this side. But overall, even though it's not even remotely close to an accurate Pyroraptor, and it's also not really a good version of a Jurassic World Dominion Pyroraptor, it is still a pretty cool looking, very unique take on a Pyroraptor from Yulomi. Now, I will definitely say one thing that isn't so great about this figure is the fact that it doesn't stand well. You can see it kind of falls back, just doesn't balance very well. No matter where I seem to put the feet, it doesn't want to stand very nicely unless I kind of put it like this. So it's kind of tilted, looking like it's running. It's still not a bad way to display it. It still looks pretty cool, but it just doesn't stand well for me. We do, again, have articulation on the figure, which is definitely fun. Again, we've got the jaw and arms, but they kind of move together, and I think that is part of the action features, so we'll just go ahead and operate it there. You can kind of see how the arms like move out away from the body and the jaw kind of goes with it there. And I don't know exactly what the action feature is. I do know it's supposed to have sound. I haven't done it yet because I wanted to save it for the review, but I did put batteries in. It does come without batteries, so you would have to buy your own batteries. We do again have articulation in the legs. You can go all the way back to that point, and that's about as far forward as you can go with that leg. I don't know if there's any tail articulation. Okay, yeah, so we can swivel the tail, which is kind of cool, I guess. So you've got that little bit of extra articulation there. Oh, we can also swivel the ankles. So very Mattel-like as far as that goes as well. So there's definitely some fun articulation on it. The leg here, I think that's about as far forward as you're going to get for that leg over here, and that's about as far back. So not a whole lot of range of movement for the legs, but it does at least still have some articulation, which is pretty cool. And then we've got a button up here on the back of the dinosaur that's going to operate our action feature. Let's move this back and just get a front view of this. So it sounds like we've got two different noises for our Pyroraptor. I don't know if either noise is the type of noise I would expect to hear from a Pyroraptor, but who knows. And you can see the arms kind of open up and the jaw snaps shut. So you've got a pretty fun action feature for it as well. Definitely something that I think, you know, kids would certainly enjoy. Let's see if I can get it to stand without putting that leg back. Oh, there we go. Look at that. All right, so we got it. That's the first time I actually got this to stand since I pulled it out of the box. So there is proof that it can stand, and I don't know if I just hit the sweet spot or what, but it is currently standing at least. As far as a size goes, for a length, like I said, it is pretty big. So for a length from the snout to the tail, about 15¼ inches, or closing in on 39 centimeters. Now it's actually standing fairly decently. And then for a height, the highest point would probably be the snout. A little over 7 inches, maybe approaching 7¼ but not quite, or about 18½ centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, as well as the Collect Day human being here next to our quite large Pyroraptor from Yulomi. And you can see again, it's absolutely a massive figure. And definitely, again, I would say probably the second largest Pyroraptor in my collection. I think the largest would definitely go to the Dinomania version, but none of the Mattel versions are, you know, they don't come even close to the size of this thing. This thing is definitely quite large. So for another comparison to show you that, here is a comparison with your standard-sized version of a Pyroraptor from Mattel, and you can very clearly see the size difference is pretty massive between these two. Obviously, the Yulomi version is way larger. But you also have the 12-inch basic version of the Pyroraptor that you can see here is at least a little bit closer in size to the Yulomi version, but still, again, a little bit smaller. Actually, I wouldn't even say a little bit smaller, quite a bit smaller than the Yulomi version. And then for one final comparison, we have the Yulomi Tyrannosaurus Rex next to the Yulomi Pyroraptor, and you can see that the Pyroraptor is quite a bit smaller than their T-Rex, which is something that, you know, you would expect. But honestly, they're not too far off, and considering the species we are looking at, you can very clearly see that the Yulomi line doesn't follow any sort of a scale or anything. It's basically just whatever size range they feel like making their figure in, they do. But still, again, pretty cool to see the two different releases so far from Yulomi here together. So this brand new Yulomi Pyroraptor is pretty cool. He's definitely not going to be for everyone, because if you are looking for an accurate interpretation of a Pyroraptor, you absolutely need to look elsewhere. And in fact, I would say look to the beasts of the Mesozoic line. If you are looking for a Jurassic World version of a Pyroraptor, you also need to look elsewhere. There are way better versions of that out from like Toy Monster International with the Captives line, or Mattel, even though theirs aren't exactly screen accurate. They're definitely closer than what we see here. But you can very clearly see that Yulomi doesn't really care so much about that. They just kind of made their own version, their own take of a Pyroraptor here, and it turned out pretty fun. If you are like me and you can appreciate dinosaurs of any kind and, you know, any style, you might enjoy this one, because I think overall it's got a pretty fun sculpt, decent detail, definitely muted, similar to the Tyrannosaurus, but not quite as bad. I would say the detailing is still a little bit more vibrant than what we saw on their T-Rex figures. Specifically in the face of this Pyroraptor, it does have some really quite nice looking fine detail. The paint apps are also very impressive, just like we saw on the T-Rex, which I also thought that one had really quite impressive paint apps. The paint apps of the Pyroraptor, I think, are even better. There's just a ton of coloration on this. It goes from head to tail. We have painted nails, everything, honestly, that you could ask for or look for when it comes to paint apps on a toy like this are present on the Yulomi Pyroraptor, and you can very clearly see that they put a lot of effort into the paint apps of their figures, so that at least shows us that they do care about having some pretty decent products from time to time. So definitely nice paint apps. I love the tones of color, I love the application of it. Everything about the paint apps of the Pyroraptor is really nice. We also have some articulation. The articulation isn't the greatest. It's similar to the T-Rex, where you only have like limited mobility in the legs and stuff. You don't have much control of certain other aspects because they're kind of part of the action feature, like the arms and the jaw. Even though they do articulate, they're kind of meant to be part of the action feature, which the action feature is fun, but it's also fun to at times have just straight up articulation on figures that allows you to have a little bit more playability, I think. But this one does have a little extra articulation, as we have a swivel tail, which is something I don't think the T-Rex had. And the actual action feature, again, is pretty cool. It's also got some noises to it, which is something the T-Rex also did not have. So that's also a plus. And they're kind of cool noises. Not great, but they're not terrible either. So as a whole, this is definitely another fun figure from Yulomi. And I am very excited to see what else they produce in the near future. Definitely some more stuff that I'll probably be picking up and adding to my collection. So if you are interested in grabbing yourself this, there are actually 4 different paint variants available for this. This is only one of the different versions. You can see the different versions here. Again, some are actually pretty cool looking. I actually was tempted to grab more than this one, but they're $25 a piece, so not really something that I was planning on spending a ton of money on. If they do end up going on sale, I'll probably grab a couple more just to kind of review for you guys to see what the different paint schemes look like in person. But as of right now, I can definitely recommend grabbing this reddish version at the very least, because it looks really quite nice here in person. Not the greatest Pyroraptor, but still a pretty cool toy. So if you are interested, make sure you check the links in the description where you can go grab this, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.